Welcome to Dutch Horizons, a channel where we explore the incredible ways the Dutch shaped history and ignited innovations across the globe. Here, stories come alive showing how a small nation left a monumental mark on trade, ideas and culture. If you enjoy these stories that connect continents and centuries, please like and subscribe to help us share even more journeys through time with curious minds everywhere. In this episode, we set sail across the sweeping tides of world history to discover how the Dutch transformed the flow of goods, people and culture between continents. You'll see how bright orange lines once connected, bustling ports from Europe to Asia and beyond, unravelling the secrets behind the world's very first global trade network, and how the Dutch Republic rose to become a centrepiece in a truly interconnected age. Chapter 1. Global Trade Routes Linking Continents. Imagine peering down from the clouds upon a miniature world map, alive with shimmering orange lines crisscrossing every corner of the globe. These are the trade arteries pulsing with life in the 17th century, as tiny ships set forth from the Dutch Republic toward distant horizons. In this chapter, we begin to trace those mesmerising routes that forever reshaped the way continents communicated, traded and evolved. The Dutch Republic, perched at the edge of northwestern Europe, emerged as an extraordinary nexus, busy harbours filled with ships destined for exotic lands. Their secret was a mastery of navigation and a relentless curiosity for what lay beyond. From the bustling wharves of Amsterdam and Rotterdam, Dutch merchant fleets fanned out, carrying more than just goods, but also new ideas and discoveries that would ripple out to influence the farthest reaches of the earth. Orange lines trace their paths over turquoise oceans and verdant lands, weaving Europe to Asia, Africa and the Americas. The Dutch ships would dock at ports like Batavia, Cape Town and New Amsterdam, their holds brimming with spices, textiles and treasures unseen in Europe before. Each journey wasn't simply about cargo. These voyages linked people, cultures and ambitions, creating new relationships that would shape the centuries to follow. Why did the Dutch Republic become such formidable navigators? It began with a bold spirit of exploration and an ingenious ability to organise complex voyages. Dutch shipbuilders crafted vessels built for distant seas, while merchants pooled resources in early corporations, sharing risks and profits. The result was a nation ready to seize the tides, navigating not only waters, but the intricate currents of global commerce and discovery. As goods, people and stories coursed along these vivid routes, the world itself seemed to shrink. Spices from Indonesia, sugar from the Caribbean, silks from China, all began to appear in European markets, transforming daily life. The Dutch ships became floating bridges, their sails billowing with the winds of change. With every journey, barriers between continents dissolved, making exchanges swifter and the world much more connected. The pulsating web of Dutch trade was more than a path for goods. It sparked revolutions in taste, art, science and society. Through these routes, not just products, but ideas, beliefs and inventions travelled faster than ever before. These links set the stage for the world we know today, showing how the Dutch Republic's shipping networks truly became the arteries of early globalization. The stage is set, our journey into these globalization. Chapter 2. Flows of goods, spices, sugar, textiles. The great Dutch ports were more than just harbours, they were crossroads of the world. Early morning light glinted off the water as ships lined up, carrying precious cargoes from every horizon. Spices from the far reaches of Asia, sacks of sugar from Caribbean plantations, dazzling textiles from India and beyond, all converged here, transforming local markets and global connections alike. Listen as cinnamon sticks, peppercorns, and the mysterious nutmeg made their way from distant islands to the decks of Dutch ships. Each crate carried not just a scent, but stories of adventure and faraway lands. Traders and sailors worked in rhythm. Barrels rolled across slick docks and spices changed hands in the crisp sea air. Their journey did not end in the Netherlands. Instead, it was just beginning. Once unloaded, these treasures from the east travelled along winding canals and overland routes, destined for European kitchens and banqueting halls. Dutch merchants understood the power of taste. A dash of cinnamon on hot wine or a sprinkle of pepper could spark conversation, envy, and longing. A handful of nutmeg became more valuable than gold, coveted and fought over by kings and cooks alike across the continent. But it was not only the spices that told a story. The sugar brought in from the Americas provided sweetness previously unknown to most Europeans. Refined in the Netherlands' busy mills, this sugar stirred into tea or glazed onto pastries came with invisible threads tying together fields in Brazil to morning tables in Amsterdam. Every bite held echoes of labour, trade, and distant sunlight growing the cane. Textiles, woven in India or Indonesia, unfolded their colours on Dutch docks. They added vibrancy to wardrobes and interiors across Europe. Each bolt of fabric revealed new patterns and artistry, inspiring local weavers and changing fashions from city to countryside. The movement of these fabrics meant more than commerce. It was a way for new ideas and aesthetics to cross borders, reshaping lives far from where the cloth was spun. In every corner of the Dutch Republic, what people ate and wore began to shift. Demand for these global goods transformed local economies. Cobblestone streets buzzed with buyers, and artisans adapted to new tastes. A single ship's arrival might mean work for dozens of craftsmen and shopkeepers, all caught in the widening web of trade. The entire society grew restless and energized, anticipating the next shipment from overseas. Yet behind this abundance lay a delicate balance. The flow of spices and sugar meant fortunes could rise or fall with a storm, a pirate raid, or a failed harvest thousands of miles away. Dutch traders learned to calculate risk, building fortunes but also facing hard lessons when shipments were delayed or lost at sea. The pulse of daily life became tied to distant winds and tides shaping the rhythms of the world. Through these bustling exchanges, something remarkable happened. The tastes and habits in one small corner of Europe reverberated around the globe. Cinnamon on a winter table in Haarlem could alter farming patterns in tropical islands. Festive silks in Rotterdam might send new patterns spiralling into South Asian looms. The story of Dutch goods is the story of connectedness, as distant shores were drawn ever closer by the power of trade. Chapter 3: Migration and People Settlers and Sailors. Across the churning seas, Dutch ships prepared to depart harbours filled with anxious families and hopeful adventurers. Each boarding was a leap toward the unknown, driven by the lure of fortune or the search for a new life. These were not just mariners. They were dreamers and risk-takers, setting sail from the Netherlands with courage etched on every farewell. The journey was rarely a solitary adventure. Groups of settlers gathered, clutching sparse belongings, united in resolve, but divided by uncertainty. The salty wind carried voices promising future homes across distant oceans. As the ropes creaked and sails unfurled, they left behind familiar towns and braced for the arduous voyage. Ahead, endless days spent at sea tested both body and spirit, forging bonds stronger than steel. On board these ships, the human tapestry grew ever richer. Dutch sailors shared cramped decks with migrants from across Europe, traders from Asia, and even forcibly transported Africans. Each person bore unique hopes and fears, shaping the floating communities that formed on these long passages. Conversations mingled languages and stories, weaving together destinies that would meet, clash, and sometimes blend in the faraway lands that awaited them. Arrival brought both relief and new challenge. Stepping onto foreign shores, settlers faced unfamiliar landscapes, climates, and people. Some built sturdy wooden homes, others laboured for companies or empires, while many formed uneasy alliances, tense standoffs with indigenous communities. Every encounter was a lesson in adaptation, learning what to sow, where to build, and how to survive in worlds wholly different from home. Dutch trading posts became cradles of diversity. Markets in Batavia, Cape Town and New Amsterdam bustled with local fishermen, African traders, European merchants and Asian artisans. People from distinct backgrounds exchanged skills, languages and even recipes. These early global cities vibrated with activity and uncertainty. Every face in the crowd represented a unique journey shaped by commerce, ambition or fate. Yet, beneath the promise of new beginnings, hardship loomed. Shipwrecks, disease and deprivation haunted many expeditions. Some migrants vanished in storms or succumbed to illness before their dreams could take root. Others persevered, forced by necessity to mix old customs with new ones, inventing traditions that might stand in foreign soil. Their stories echo with both determination and sorrow, testaments to enduring human resilience. For many indigenous, African and Asian peoples, Dutch expansion brought profound changeosomer times opportunity, sometimes violence or displacement. Some adapted by trading or negotiating, shaping their destinies through diplomacy and alliance. For others, the shadow of colonial rule altered communities for generations. These overlooked voices became part of a broader human story, showing that migrations were never just about the settlers, but about everyone touched by these journeys. Over time, these migrations wove together far-flung communities. Dutch, African, Asian and indigenous people formed new connection saliences, families and rivalries that shaped each settlement and port. Languages mingled, cuisines blended and faiths adapted. The world had become more connected than ever before, and every individual's journey, whether by choice or force, contributed to the beginnings of today's truly global society. Chapter 4. Cultural exchange, languages, food, customs. Along the global trade routes, not only cargo travelled, but also the soul of distant lands. Ships returning to Dutch harbours brought spices that would soon simmer in local kitchens, changing how meals tasted and how homes smelled. These voyages opened doors to curiosity, inviting the unfamiliar to become part of daily life in towns across the Netherlands and far beyond. Imagine a Dutch kitchen where cinnamon and nutmeg, once rare, now mingle in stews and pastries. The scent of cloves lingers in the air, a reminder of the islands thousands of miles away. In marketplaces, traders share recipes and swap stories, each ingredient holding a memory from another world. New flavours are not adopted all at once, but gradually woven into the fabric of Dutch cuisine, forever transforming the meaning of home-cooked meals. Beyond the kitchen, language shifts with every encounter. Sailors bring foreign words, Japanese coins, Indian silks, Caribbean pepperzinto, daily conversation. Soon, Dutch vocabulary is peppered with new terms, standing out like spices sprinkled in dough. Words change as quickly as fashion in the growing republic. The presence of these borrowings reflects a culture always in motion, eager to shape and be shaped by the world beyond its shores. Street scenes transform as neighbours don textiles from distant markets, batik shawls, silk scarves, intricate Chinese porcelain on windowsills. Music too picks up exotic rhythms, a lute borrowed from Persia, a drumbeat echoing from Africa, melodies drifting across the canals. Artisans practice new designs inspired by far-off lands, creating a fusion of Dutch tradition and global imagination that spills out into galleries and public squares. Cultural exchange moves both ways. Dutch maps and paintings travel to Asia and the Americas, sparking wonder in foreign cities. In return, artists from abroad introduce fresh colours and techniques into local studios. A visiting merchant might teach a new dance step, while an overseas musician shares an unfamiliar scale. Every encounter leaves a trace subtle at first, but enduring as daily habits stretch and adapt to the rhythms of a wider world. At the table, customs blend. Meals grow more cosmopolitan, with formal tea rituals drawn from China joining local habits. Forks and spoons, once unfamiliar, find a place on the table next to wooden Dutch spoons. Toasts cross languages. Proost, Salud, Kanpai, uniting diverse guests in laughter. Over time, what was once foreign becomes familiar, proof of how openness and exchange give rise to something altogether new and uniquely Dutch. Schools echo with foreign tales as students learn not just geography, but also the stories and songs of distant places. Children dress for festivals inspired by lands they've only heard about, while books translate exotic legends into Dutch. Curiosity becomes a national habit, with each new friendship or idea quietly reshaping what it means to be Dutchal, part of an ongoing invitation to see the world through both local and global eyes. Through 1,000 daily rituals, the Dutch experience is transformed by this immense tapestry of exchange. A taste, a word, a pattern in clothing points back to connections that stretch across oceans. This mingling doesn't erase traditional culture. Instead, it weaves new threads into an expanding tapestry. In the Netherlands and beyond, curiosity and welcome light the path, leaving an enduring legacy of cultural blending that colours life to this day. Chapter 5. Competition and Conflict. Risks of Empire. As Dutch merchants expanded their reach across distant seas, they encountered ambition not only among themselves, but in powerful rivals. The world stage of the 17th century was crowded with eager competitors. Britain, Spain and Portugal all jockeyed for influence at busy ports and unknown shores. The promise of profit and dominance drew invisible boundaries, traced by conflict simmering beneath every sail and cargo hold. Stormy waters became a hallmark of Dutch ambition, both literally and figuratively. In faraway harbours, the clash of orange with red or blue banners marked tense showdowns. Sometimes these rivalries exploded into warfare or subtle acts of sabotage. At other times, they drove ingenious solutions and inventions. The race to control strategic passageways like the Strait of Malacca or the Cape of Good Hope was not for the faint of heart. Piracy roamed these vital sea arteries, not only threatening cargo and ship, but shaking economic confidence abroad and at home. Dutch fleets faced daring attacks from pirates who sought opportunity in the chaos of so many ships moving exotic goods. Each voyage demanded new levels of vigilance. Every captain kept an eye on the horizon, while traders watched the balance sheet. The dangers added drama to the global pursuit of wealth. Yet the Dutch faced more than competition from fellow Europeans. Across Asia, Africa and the Americas, encounters with local rulers and communities could spark fierce resistance. The ambition for control often challenged existing cultures and sovereignties. Negotiations sometimes turned into confrontations as traders pushed for privileges in distant markets. These struggles remind us that the Dutch network was constantly reshaped by pushback from people determined to defend their world. Amid conflict, risk and uncertainty shaped the rhythms of daily life in the Dutch trading world. Some ship captains made bold choices, sailing dangerous passages to reach lucrative new ports. Fortifications were built, alliances formed and treaties hastily negotiated. Every attempt to expand brought fresh challenges. Ambition blinked in the shadow of adversity. Such obstacles forced adaptation and sometimes led to the unravelling of Dutch ambitions in certain regions. The miniature world of the global Dutch network became a landscape of intersecting orange line soften, colliding in stormy chaos over prized harbours. Each route, each contested port represented a gamble for riches and influence. While success bred innovation and discovery, the spectre of conflict remained ever present, casting uncertainty on every agreement and every venture. This constant tension became a defining feature of the age of Dutch expansion. In the face of such risks, the Dutch developed remarkable strategies of resilience. Insurance markets blossomed in Amsterdam, and merchant crews became adept at communication, evasion, and defence. While competition threatened fortunes, it also spurred ingenuity from fast-sailing ships to creative diplomatic tactics. The drive to outwit rivals turned the Dutch Republic into a hub for practical ideas and hard lessons forged in adversity. Through these chapters of rivalry, hardship, and occasional triumph, the story of Dutch global connections reveals its most human side. Behind every conflict or risky passage were people captains, sailors, financiers, and local traders navigating uncertainty with courage and hope. Their efforts and hardships shaped a world that was interwoven, dramatic, and always in motion, leaving a legacy visible in our own interconnected age. Chapter 6. Environmental Impact. Early Global Consequences. As Dutch trade networks stretched across continents, their influence began to echo not only in bustling markets but in the natural world. Shipyards demanded timber from distant forests, reshaping entire landscapes. Every voyage, every new port meant change for both people and ecosystems. The scale of these transformations was enormous, and their echoes ripple through our environment even centuries later. Forests, once thick and ancient, were cut down to feed Europe's hunger for ships and profit. Oak and pine trees vanished along riverbanks near Dutch shipyards, and the same pattern followed abroad. Timber from the Baltic, Java, and the Americas became essential to power ever larger fleets. What seemed like progress bustling docks, ship launches, booming trade also began, a silent depletion of natural resources, a story written in the rings of absent trees. Across distant coasts, ecosystems were altered by the movement of unfamiliar species. Dutch ships carried seeds, animals, and even pests between continents, often without intention. Tropical plants arrived in European gardens, while Old World animals grazed on new lands and changed habitats forever. Global trade had created not just economic flows, but biological ones, sometimes delicate, sometimes devastating, always far-reaching in their effect. In South Africa, Dutch settlers planted vineyards with European grapevines and brought cattle that quickly transformed the landscape. In the Caribbean, sugar plantations replaced forests, and new crops flourished in unfamiliar soils. Each adaptation was a human achievement, an answer to hunger and opportunity, but each left a mark on the earth itself. These early global exchanges intertwined the destinies of far-flung places, for better and for worse. The vast movement of goods also changed ocean ecosystems. Ballast water from Dutch ships poured out in distant harbours introduced sea life to unfamiliar waters. Oyster shells, barnacles, and small fish hitchhiked across oceans, sometimes becoming invasive in new homes. Maritime trade, envisioned as connection and prosperity, also sowed complex challenges for local environments, both above and below the waves. At the heart of this transformation lay a double-edged legacy. The wonders of horticulture and economic growth brought new foods and materials across the world, potatoes from the Andes, spices from Asia, coffee from Africa. But these benefits came with unintended consequences. Native species displaced, soils exhausted, ancient forests gone. The Dutch, like other explorers, stood at the crossroads of ingenuity and impact with each global journey they undertook. Historical records showed Dutch scholars and travellers marvelling at the strange creatures and plants they encountered. Some voices celebrated nature's bounty as evidence of opportunity, while others warned of loss. Paintings and diaries captured a world in flux, trees disappearing, rivers redirected, wildlife patterns changed. The story of Dutch global trade, then, is also a story of observing, documenting, and sometimes mourning the cost of expansion. Today, we still live with the echoes of these early environmental consequences. The orange lines of Dutch horizons connected the world, sparking wonder and prosperity, but also sowing seeds of complexity and challenge. Reflecting on the past reminds us that global connections have always held both promise and responsibility, an inheritance that shapes how we care for the planet and for each other in a connected age. Chapter 7. Legacy Roots of Today's Globalization. As we arrive at our journey's final chapter, we cast our gaze from the past to the present moment. The legacy of Dutch innovation and global reach is still woven through the world today. Watch as the miniature cities and glowing lines of ancient trade routes ripple outward, touching every continent and reflecting a world more interconnected than ever before. The echoes of the Dutch Golden Age now pulse through digital highways and fibre-optic cables, carrying goods, ideas and cultures at rapid speed across the globe. The spirit of the early navigators, explorers who mapped uncharted waters, lives on in today's entrepreneurs and dreamers. Our daily lives are shaped by seemingly invisible threads connecting distant lands in ways those early pioneers could barely imagine. Step back and observe the legacy left on our maps, not just physical lines or changing borders, but new rhythms of exchange. Today's global flows mirror the ambition and ingenuity displayed by the Dutch centuries ago. Ports bustle, virtual marketplaces spring to life, and cities hum with diversity. Through each connection, we see the progression from wind-filled sails to the silent speed of digital signals spanning the earth. As the world shrinks through instant communication, cultural fusion blossoms. Languages once traded by Dutch merchants now blend in multilingual cities. Cuisines sampled in 17th century markets inspire today's global menus. The panorama of art, music and customs continually evolves, thanks to those first intercontinental crossings, leaving an enduring mark on how communities relate, celebrate and grow together. We are all heirs to a world of possibility, born from the Dutch pursuit of curiosity and openness. Their willingness to learn, to adapt, and to share sparked layered networks that now support modern globalization. Along the glowing routes, old barriers fade, replaced by bridges of dialogue and understanding. Each of us carries this legacy, shaping the future with every new connection we choose to make. Yet, with opportunity comes responsibility. The pioneers once faced vast unknowns and made choices with consequences that ripple to this day. Our modern, connected planet needs careful stewardship, for the same roots that bring prosperity can also carry challenge. We are called to move forward thoughtfully, balancing innovation with respect, recognizing both the power and the limits of connection. The miniature cities and glowing lines circling the globe invite us to imagine a shared future run, enriched by past achievements, but mindful of tomorrow's needs. Let us remember the lessons of openness and resilience, welcoming new ideas while preserving the spirit of respect. In a world joined by invisible threads, each action shapes both local lives and distant horizons. As our journey ends, reflect on how you are part of this intricate web. From the windswept harbours of the past to the fibre-lit networks of today, the Dutch story continues. In every shared idea, every cross-border partnership, and every step toward understanding. May we all carry forward that pioneering spirit, building a world where curiosity, responsibility, and connection remain at the heart of globalization.